Remember me, Lord, I'm down.
The coastal lowlands of South Carolina. Stretches of wild swampland, home of the cottonmouth snake, the raccoon, the opossum, the wildcat. Not a comfortable place for man, but a place to which man will come. In 1855, according to local legend, black slave Granville Hemingway received 400 acres of this swampland for saving his white master's life. The land remained unclaimed and unused for 10 years as a nation suffered through 5 years of bitter civil war and through the chaos and confusion of Reconstruction. During Reconstruction, some blacks uprooted from homes migrated to the north. Others stayed where they were, as half-slaves, as sharecroppers, as laborers eager to take any available job. With a few friends and their families, Granville Hemingway entered the swamp. From this harsh environment, the black pioneers hacked out a community known today as Cedar Branch. They set the stage for a long struggle for survival, a struggle to test the wills of men and to mold them together in an effort to win the future. Descendants of the first swamp families number 325. They endure their environment through an ingenious social mechanism, through a culture evolved out of 100 years of adaptation to the vagaries of the swamp. This is the story of the culture, one derived from man's struggle to wrench life from adversity. The 32 households in this remote, all-black community are spread over an area 1 mile wide and 5 miles long. They remain culturally and geographically isolated. The people of Cedar Branch sustain themselves with little outside help. They grow their own food. They join together to build their houses and to clear their fields. Often they dig their own wells. Their own stores provide them with those items they cannot produce themselves. Tools and machinery are repaired at a community blacksmith shop. There is a social club for the entertainment of the young. A church, centrally located, is a religious and social outlet for the older people. The people are farmers. They own their own land. Farms range in size from 2 to 60 acres. And pass from generation to generation, from father to son. Farming efforts are concentrated primarily on production of cash crops of tobacco and corn. Other produce is retained to feed livestock and for community consumption. Between growing seasons, the people venture outside the community for part-time work on larger farms of whites, in small manufacturing firms, as seasonal migrant workers. They return to Cedar Branch with their earnings when the work is done. The land is old, in the final stage of the erosion cycle. Mean altitude of the community is 42 feet above sea level. Yet, a few feet can determine whether a field is high enough for dependable crop production. Cedar Branch has 3 types of land: swampland, marginal land, and highland. Swampland takes 1/3 of the total land area of the community. Creeks and streams course through the swamp and empty into the Waccamaw River. Cultivation is impossible, but the marshes do yield wild berries for making pies, jams, and jellies. Here, too, are bay leaves for seasoning homemade lard and hog cracklings. Streams yield fresh fish to give the diet variety. Half of the land is marginal for crop production. The land edges the swamp and is at the mercy of rising water. It is a gamble to plant soybeans, oats, and hay on the marginal land. A gamble to plant high labor crops like beans, potatoes, collards, sugarcane, squash, okra, and turnip greens. But the risk must be taken. Cultivatable land is scarce in the community. If the swamp rises, crops die. Loss of any crop reduces the subsistence level of the people of Cedar Branch. Only 15% of the land area in Cedar Branch is highland. It is precious. It rarely floods. The community's cash crops, tobacco and corn, can be grown on it with relative security. But security is relative to the incidence of plant disease, hailstorms, insects, and drought. A dirt road ties the land and the people together. It is the only link to the outside world. All communication and transportation depend upon it. The road winds 5 miles through the swamp and is important to the existence of Cedar Branch as a community. Bloomy Hemingway's house. The 6-room frame structure rests on the edge of the swamp. Bloomy, a son, 4 daughters, and their 9 children live in the house. Bloomy is the head of the household. She and her family have no cash-producing high land, nor any marginal land for growing produce. The family is able to exist only through a combination of odd jobs and farm labor in and outside the community. Everyone over 8 years of age is required to work whenever possible. Yet, combined earnings of the family amount to less than $800 a year. Bloomy's 22-year-old son, L.C., spends most of the summer working at odd jobs. Most of his wages are returned to the household. The only adult male in Bloomy's family, L.C. does most of the tasks defined in Cedar Branch as man's work. He chops wood, repairs the houses and outbuildings, digs ditches and drains, fells trees, removes stumps. Elsie's sister, Emma Neal, is 16. She babysits with the children of the house, helps prepare family meals, washes and repairs clothing, and does seasonal farm work on large truck farms outside the community. Floyd, Bloomy's eldest grandchild, is 13. For most of his life, he has been raised by Grandmother Bloomy. Although Floyd's mother has returned to the community after a stay in New York, Floyd retains a strong tie to Bloomy. His is a responsibility to learn man's work. For one day, he will leave Bloomy's to form his own household. In all, there are 15 people in Bloomy's household. With this many mouths to feed, Bloomy must have help if her family is to survive on the edge of the swamp. Hedley Hemingway is an owner of marginal land. He has a 25-acre tract left him by his father. His crops are corn, soybeans, and oats, all planted against the risk of rising swamp water. In summer, if luck is with him, his large garden yields sweet corn, beans, potatoes, and squash. In late summer and early fall, he harvests turnip greens, collards, and sugar cane. He keeps chickens, swine, and a mule that is essential to the preparation and maintenance of his land. Hedley and his wife, Glancy, partially paralyzed by stroke, live in a 4-room house. The couple have some resources. They have their land, their livestock, and some basic tools. But their household lacks the labor and equipment it needs to make it self-sustaining. Cobe Hemingway owns good, high land. He is one of only 9 men in the community who do. Of the 56 acres he inherited from his father, 9 are high and productive. Under the federal allotment system, he puts 3 acres in tobacco. He works long hours to make the land produce as much as it will. Like Headley, he has some livestock. He has a wagon, plows, pickup truck, food freezer, and several tobacco and storage barns. Saney, his wife, helps plant, weed, and harvest the crops. She does this in addition to her household chores. Their 6-room house was built near the edge of the swamp to free the good, high land for cultivation. A 33-year-old daughter, Maybelle, lives with him. Although blind and unable to leave the house, she is required to perform jobs to help keep the household going. She has learned to feel out the cotton twine that holds cured leaf on tobacco sticks, and to remove the leaf to be graded and sold. She shells beans, shucks corn, and helps prepare food for the table. Cobb has many of the tools needed for successful farming, but he does not have enough labor. During the growing and harvesting season, 10 workers are needed to work tobacco. Ripe leaves must be stripped from stalk and loaded in large trailers for transport to the tobacco barns. There, the tobacco is gathered in small bunches and tied to sticks and hung on racks in the barn for curing. No one family in Cedar Branch has all the labor, equipment, and kind of land it needs to be self-sufficient. The families of Bloomy, Headley, and Cobb are typical of all families in the community. Large families like Bloomy's could meet their labor needs, but they have not inherited any high land for cash crops, nor marginal lands for gardens. Some families like Headley's have marginal land that will provide some produce, but they do not have the labor and machinery they need to support themselves independently. Other families like Cobb's have good land and machinery, but they do not have the labor they need. No one family can survive without help.
with no one to hear. But maybe someday I'll make them listen to this poor boy, both far and near. The radio says we're in trouble with crime and violence every day. If people would stop and count their blessings instead of wondering how they got that way. Why can't people love each other? Is it hard to help a friend? All it takes is love, my brother.
Floyd Hemingway, Bloomy's grandson, belongs to a family that lives on non-productive low land. The land is often underwater. If the family is to benefit from the produce of the marginal and high lands, it must share something it has with the other families, something the other families do not have. That something is labor. Woodcutting and gathering are evidence of the mechanism of sharing. Headley chops wood on Cobb's land. He and Floyd, with help from a young friend, will load the wagon and distribute the wood among the three families, Bloomy's, Headley's, and Cobb's. Several wagon loads will furnish a supply to last a month.
With its red stain, what can I do? I feel so bad.
When wood piles dwindle, another team will be assembled to perform the chore.
Only I could help these something.
Next month, Cobb and LC may team to gather the wood.
But the army marched with their kids. What can I do?
For Floyd, wood gathering is more than the work. The work takes him from the routine and confinement of home. He likes the feel of reins taut on the back of the mule. He likes sitting high above the ground in a man-sized seat.
To this poor boy, both far and near, the radio says we're in trouble with crime and violence every day. If people would stop and count their blessings.
Wood gathering is only one of many ways in which the families help each other. When wild grass threatens to choke out turnip greens in Cobb's garden, Bloomy sends Emma Neal with a hoe. Emma Neal's help frees Cobb and Saney to cultivate their valuable high land. In return for her help, Emma Neal will receive turnip greens to take home to help feed Bloomy's family. All families do not have transportation for infrequent trips to town to shop for cloth, personal items, and household goods. Bloomy has no way. She has no car, no mule, no wagon. Cobb shares his truck with Bloomy and the others because they share what they have with him. Cooperation is again necessary when a family is away from home. Animals left behind must be fed and watered. While Headley is away at market to sell his corn, duty falls to L.C. to water and feed Headley's mule. L.C., joined by friends, walks from Bloomy's house to Headley's to perform the chore. Tomorrow, the same mule may be hitched to Cobb's wagon to collect and haul garbage from houses of all three families. The big cash crop for the families is tobacco. All of it is grown on Cobb's land away from the threat of the swamp. But Cobb must depend on workers like L.C. and Floyd to help tend it. They must help prune the plants and keep them free of insect pests to assure a quality, high-yield crop.
The night has gone. The day has just begun. As I look from my window, I see the world as it rolls along. Wow, 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 wow,
The ritual of hog killing in the fall and winter carries the theme of cooperation even further. Because each will benefit from the slaughter, members of the several families join together on killing day to give what help they can. The gathering is at Headley's. It is a time for socializing, for exchanging word about the happenings of the days or weeks gone by. The socializing, however, is a secondary side of the event. Hog killing is serious business because it means needed meat for the tables of Bloomy, Headley, and Cobb. Well before the hog is killed and hauled to Headley's, fires are stoked high. Water in big black vats and galvanized tubs is brought to boil over intense heat. When hot enough, the water is transferred to a barrel, and the hog carcass is immersed and scalded. The procedure softens the animal's hair to make easier its removal from the hide. Scraping is done with sharp knives that must be handled with care to avoid injury to the meat. The morning is cold. Water must be kept hot for continued dousing on the hide of the hog. Only hair and grime are removed from the body of the animal. All else has a practical use. A post to hang the animal for butchering is made ready. It must be sturdy enough to hold the full weight of the hog.
Oh, yeah, those 30 feet. I said 20. You said you all get 10.
L.C.'s knife carefully probes a hind leg to locate the tough, sinewy hamstring from which the animal will hang. If the hamstring is severed by the blade, valuable time is lost in a search for material to lash the animal to the post. Lost time may mean spoiled meat.
You say one hole.
It takes strong backs to hoist the heavy animal into position.
I know it's a higher twin. You know, you don't know it too. Don't go you more people here, man.
What was 12? What, 14?
Yeah. You're long as 16.
Yeah.
You long too. We're keep it hung around to me about that high and give it to they fight, you all live in the hung around. But that's a few with sorry now.
Who else is getting up there?
The carcass gets a final cleaning. The position of the animal clears vital abdominal and chest regions for easy access and also permits blood to drain from veins and internal organs. Entrails are lifted intact and collected in a large tub. The entrails go to the women, who clean them in preparation for making casings for sausage. Edible organs such as the liver and heart are removed. For Floyd, the hog killing is a learning experience. He watches the procedure carefully because when he becomes a man, it may be his responsibility to help provide meat for himself and others. At the butchering table, the men use sharp knives and saws to cut up the meat. No part of the animal is wasted. The head is removed and later each part of it, even brains, will be cooked and eaten. The carcass is cut into loin, ham, side, fat back, and butt. Feet are removed for pickling. As soon as skin and fat are removed, they are taken to Saney's house and put in vats of boiling water to make lard and hog cracklings.
I got up early this morning, and then I hope they clean the hog. We took and picked him, and then when we got him picked and cut up, then I took the fat and made cracklings out of it. And now I got them in the pot fixing to cook. And if you put water in them, they won't burn. But if you put grease in there and fry them, they'll burn. And old burnt meat is not fit to eat no how. You can't hardly eat it. This is a fat cut off. It'll be right brown, look like meat you fried. And now you take them meat skins and let them stay in that hot grease right on, you know, till they fry good and brown. And to be right crumpy, you can take them and show them. I like them. They're good. Yeah, and then when I get it brown, start the browning, I'll pull out some of the far and cook it slow.
After everything is done, the meat is shared among the three families. Cooperation. It is the key to survival in Cedar Branch. All families of the community group themselves into self-sustaining clusters to which each member family contributes something. The family that attempts to go it alone will die out, or it will move out of Cedar Branch and try to survive in another setting. To member families, the cluster offers the necessities for survival: productive land, labor, food, tools, cash, and transportation. To these, add security. Clancy is partially paralyzed. She is limited in what she can do for the cluster. She can perform some chores, freeing others to perform heavier ones. The cluster cares. She is assured of sustenance as a contributing member of the cluster. The families of Bloomy, Headley, and Kolb form one of 9 clusters in Cedar Branch. Each cluster has the same composition of families and land due to inheritance channels. Marginal and high land are handed down from father to son. Families like Bloomy's with no male head of household are in no position to inherit either. When Bloomy marries and leaves her home, one of her daughters will become head of household. This cycle assures the continuation of labor-producing families in Cedar Branch. By working together in a cluster, the families furnish basic ingredients of labor, land, and equipment, and reap the cash crops and food they need for their security. The cluster is necessary to the survival of all. Without this cultural and adaptive organization, Cedar Branch would be the name of a swamp, not of a community. All people in Cedar Branch are descended from common ancestors. They are related, but the organization of the clusters is not based on kinship, nor is the composition of the cluster analogous to social class or clan. The cluster is a basic economic unit that depends upon the various contributions of its members to survive. For 100 years, the people of Cedar Branch have been isolated from the outside world. Left to their own resources with little help from the outside, they have fashioned a culture of their own in the swamp. From their efforts has evolved a system of interdependence necessary to life. The system works, but it is a struggle.